when you said the word narrow, like as followers of Christ, we are told that we are on a narrow path. And so anybody that's trying to honor God in their marriage, they fit here. They fit here because we're already on a narrow path.
Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You jumped in on me saying Happy New Year.
I know. I'm just excited.
It's a new year. 2022.
Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness. We are starting a new year, and we are excited to be back with you on the Redeemed Marriage Podcast for a brand new year and a brand new season.
Yeah, season 3.
Yes, so we're kind of breaking this up a little bit into seasons because we did season 2, and we sort of want season 2 to be a reference point because we walked through our story, and it was the kind of the 10-year mark of 2011, and we wanted to be able to just point people to the story. Yeah. So from now on, if we need to, we can say, hey, you need to go back and listen to season 2 of our podcast. So
that's where it's at.
Yep. So season 3 is just because it's a new year, and we're about to start a new season, new podcast episodes.
Yes.
Starting now.
So excited.
Yes. And so what we wanted to do today, though, is we kind of wanted to set the stage for the new year, kind of just get things ready and kicked off in a good way. And one of the things that I thought that we should do is to if you'll remember, our very first episode was called Our Passion. And so if you haven't listened to that, you can go back. But we were doing that we didn't know what we were doing. And we were doing video podcasts. No, we still don't. But we were doing video podcasts, and we were filming with our phones. Yeah. And then we would use this little app on my phone to try to splice it all together. It was actually called Splice. They're not advertisers, but said to me, they could be if you're listening, Splice people. But we did that, and we would put it just on Facebook and Instagram, and it was kind of just we just felt like we needed to start sharing some things. But then we got all tech savvy, and we figured out how to do this podcast thing.
That's a we.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a we.
Not a we or a me but that was a you for sure.
Yep. So we figured this thing out, and we started putting our podcasts, and so we actually went back and we converted those video ones to audio, and so they're on there. But the quality's not very good. And, I mean, the message is still good, but who knows what we really said.
Do you think that we'll listen back to these one day and go, oh, my gosh, we thought that we were high-tech?
Probably so. But anyway, the point of that was we kind of wanted to almost reset a little bit by just kind of sharing on today's episode, why we do this, who we're trying to talk to. And as we were discussing it a few minutes ago, I actually joked with you and said, so basically we're just going to try to tackle every marriage issue in one episode.
That's right. I just want everybody who listens to this to be able to say when we're done, I see myself in that. And, because I feel like sometimes we have episodes geared right towards certain people and certain situations. But I want everybody, once we finish this episode, to go, that's me.
Yeah,
that's
I fit
me.
in there.
That's right.
I fit in there. And the crazy thing is, and some of this is coming because we are involved on social media because people respond to us and comment and send us messages. And a lot of times we get well, your situation's different from mine, or this happened, and and maybe they think, well, what you're saying doesn't apply to me.
Right.
And so that's true sometimes when we say things because, we can't talk to everybody at once. And so I think that it's really good, though, that we just sort of lay that out a little bit and just kind of say, this is why we are sharing the message that we're sharing. But at the same time, this is why you can listen to this podcast and you still fit into it.
That's right.
Yeah, I listen to some podcasts sometime that talk about how to grow your podcast and things that you need to do. And one of them is very, very, they're very adamant about finding your, they say niche. And I don't know if it's niche or niche, Niche. They, all the people these days say
your squad.
Niche. But you're supposed to have a very narrow niche. So you find, you have a very narrow target audience.
Sure.
And I understand that to a degree, but at the same time, what we have to share from our story, even though that is a special niche, that is a special group of people probably that have been through what we've been through, but what we learn from that,
That's right.
wow, reaches a lot of different people.
Yeah, well, and two things came to my mind while you were saying that is, when you said the word narrow, like as followers of Christ, we are told that we are on a narrow path. And so anybody that's trying to honor God in their marriage, they fit here, they fit here because we're already on a narrow path. But then the other thing I thought about is there are times I turn, because I have 4 or 5 pastors that I love to listen to. And there are times that I'll even read the title of the sermon and go, I don't know if that's really me, but I listen to it and I always get something out of it. And then not only that, if I don't, I'll get something out of it that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come across somebody one day that is going to need to hear this. And good. So even if you're listening and your marriage is great or you're not married yet, or whatever, there's going to be things that you can learn that one day you may be able to put into practice or to be able to share with somebody to help their marriage.
Yeah, that's good. Let's lay it all out then. So I want us just to kind of start off and just throw our cards on the table because if maybe this is your first time to listen, I mean, we know we pick up new listeners all the time and they probably start with the most recent episode and then they make their way back and listen to some. But just so everybody knows why we even do this is because 10 years ago in 2011, we faced a marriage crisis because we walked through infidelity.
Right.
And, like we said, you can go back and listen to season 2 and you can hit all of those episodes and really hear a lot of just the story of Heather when she confessed to me to being unfaithful during that summer of 2011. And so it started a journey for us. It started a journey for you because your life completely changed.
That's right.
And then as your life completely changed, our marriage also completely changed because we fought for our marriage. I mean, the ultimate betrayal in a marriage. And
the only biblical reason God gives us for divorce, like the only out that you can have is through that.
Right. And so we chose to fight for our marriage and to put in the hard work. And it was a lot. I mean, it was a long time. And it was a lot of learning and studying and counseling and marriage intensive and, everything. And so because of that, that is why almost every one of our episodes, you're going to find this message of fight for your marriage, this message of hope.
That's right.
Because we want you to look at our marriage and be able to go, okay, if they made it through what they did, and there's so many twists and just even unusual and hard circumstances within that story that made it even harder than what some people might even be going through on that side of, if they're going through infidelity.
That's right.
So we just want to, first of all, say we're going to always preach the message of hope and fighting for your marriage and do all that you can to stay together. Because I think it was perfect what you said. We're on a narrow path already. And so, but the fact that we have this story that people can look at and go, all right, well, we're walking a journey very similar to that.
That's right.
We've had somebody, one or the other has had an affair, and we're walking through that journey, and we can look at them, and they probably listen to these episodes and go,
right, that's right.
Yep. But then there's some that maybe they're not exactly there, but they're walking through other traumas, other traumatic events in their marriage, and again, they can look at us and go, well, my goodness, if they made it through that, then surely we can make it through, what we're dealing with.
Well, and not only are we talking about people who have a different trauma, but we could also be talking to those people who went through the same trauma that we went through, but you and I were both ready to fight for our marriage.
That's right.
But we have listeners that, and because we've heard from them, that say, yes, we went through the same crisis that y'all did, but either the person who was unfaithful doesn't want to fight for their marriage, or the person that was betrayed doesn't want to fight for their marriage. Right. And so that's a whole nother situation. Now, that's not saying that they can't come around to ready to fight for their marriage.
Right.
But, we had a very specific story, as horrible as it was. But I know that the same God who saved our marriage can save these people's marriage as well. It's just they may look different, but that doesn't mean the lessons that we learn don't apply.
Right.
So you touched on the people who have the same story that we do, maybe the same story, but different spouses want different things. And then the people who may have gone through a trauma, such as maybe losing a child, or something with their children, or there's all sorts of traumas out there that marriages can face. But then you have people out there who really haven't been through a big event, but they are going through the daily grind of marriage. And sometimes that might even seem harder, just the daily struggles of being married. And we're definitely targeting those people as well.
Yeah, because people might, look at this or this podcast and go, well, nobody's had an affair, or we haven't had trauma. But what we learned throughout our trauma and throughout our crisis was we learned things to make sure, first of all, that it wouldn't happen again, but also the things that we did wrong, like the things that and so as we learned actually more than just, hey, heal and make sure it doesn't happen again, but we learned what a healthy marriage was supposed to be.
That's right.
And we learned really practical things that taught us how to have a healthy marriage. And
to protect that healthy marriage.
Yeah, the things that we should have had in place before. And so when we talk and we're sharing our story, that's a big part of it is that we're not just saying, hey, we walked through infidelity, and so here's some tidbits about that. Yeah. It's more of, we know what it takes now to have a healthy marriage. And it wasn't because, we just we did so much. Like, we did a lot of the work for you guys. Right. So now we're sharing it with you. We hope that you will do the work too. But, if there was something that we should have done or could have done, we did it. The marriage conferences, the marriage intensive, counseling separately, together, reading books, sermons. Finding mentors, everything that you can think of. And so through that, we've just learned that we can pass that on to other couples and just teach how to have a really healthy marriage. Another
group of people that we've heard from that have enjoyed listening are people who aren't even married yet. And I love that. Yeah. I love that because they are listening to try to find ways to step into marriage with a healthy image of what it's going to look like. Because we get real on here, And, we've even talked about expectations and how a lot of times those are not met. And so it leads to disappointment. And so these people who are haven't stepped into marriage yet, but are trying to just find what a godly marriage would look like. Mm-hmm. And that's encouraging that those people are listening as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to back up just a little bit because you touched on this when we said that a lot of times people go through what we've been through, but they can't get to the other side of it like we do, mm-hmm. like we did, because one spouse or the other just refuses, or they don't change, or whatever it might be. And, and so they listen, or they can look at this and say, well, that's not me, because mm-hmm. I didn't have a spouse that was willing to work through things. And so we want to also say, you mentioned that there's a biblical grounds of divorce, and that's infidelity. But we also want to say that there are marriages that are unhealthy to the point of mm-hmm. you have to get out of it.
That's right.
Like, for example, we have never had to face this, so it's hard for us to speak on topics like this, but mm-hmm. we understand it. Physical abuse. That's right. If you're in danger, or your children are in danger, mm-hmm. like, you have to get out of that situation. Mm-hmm. And we're not saying that God's not big enough to restore that at some point, sure. but there is a point where you have to make sure that you're safe and you're mm-hmm. distancing yourself. Mm-hmm. I think about, and look, we're not throwing something out that people wouldn't know about, because now it is public, but Lisa Turkhurst, who is so, she walked through the journey that we walked through, mm-hmm. and there was restoration and reconciliation and even renewal of mm-hmm. vows. And we knew that at some point over this last year that something was going on, and she finally announced publicly that her husband had broken those vows as mm-hmm. well. And she again, mm-hmm. that's right, again for a second time. Mm-hmm. And so, she said, as hard as it is, right. she knows that she at this point has mm-hmm. to give up on fighting for her marriage. Right. And look, there's a verse in the Bible in Malachi that says that God hates divorce. And we throw that out all the mm-hmm. time because we want that to be an encouragement, because it's not that God hates divorced people. Mm-hmm. He hates the concept of divorce. Right. And sometimes I think you can look at that and go, wow, that's harsh. Mm-hmm. We've been divorced or whatever. But why wouldn't God hate the concept? Mm-hmm. That's not what he designed to happen. Right. But we also know that there's circumstances and situations where that does happen. And we want you to also hear that if you're one of those that's gone through a divorce, or that one spouse was just, you had to get out of the marriage mm-hmm. for, an abusive situation, or a spouse that would not quit, mm-hmm. The mm-hmm. habitual sexual sin mm-hmm. or whatever, that there's no condemnation.
That's right.
There's no condemnation in Christ. And the beauty of it is that he can still, the title of our podcast is The Redeemed Marriage, mm-hmm. because our marriage was redeemed. Mm-hmm. It was broken. It was completely torn down to ashes, and God redeemed it. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is that your situation, no matter what it might be, even if it has already landed in divorce, God can redeem that marriage. God can redeem your situation.
That's right.
And I mentioned this last week about a friend of mine that I had talked to, and he went through, his wife had been unfaithful and ended up leaving him. Like, that's not his not his choice.
That's right.
And
mm-hmm.
wasn't his fault that mm-hmm. she decided to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he can't listen to this and go, well, that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
Because we didn't stay together. But no, he found a godly lady, and now mm-hmm. they have a marriage and blended mm-hmm. family. And what a redemption story that is for him. And I don't know his ex-wife. I don't know what is happening with her, but God can redeem her as well.
That's right.
And that's what we pray for. Mm-hmm. But for his situation, and for those of you that are listening that may already be divorced, there's no condemnation, mm-hmm. and God can still redeem your situation as it is.
That's right. Because he is a God who doesn't condemn. If you're feeling condemnation or shame, that's not from the Lord.
That's
not from Him. So, and we want to be able to be a voice of hope in that situation as well, and not just for redeemed marriages.
Yeah. And I like what you said about how how people that are just day-to-day marriages can just pull little things from what we're saying. And one of the things that I don't want us to get in a rut is always talking about the heavy stuff, because marriage is also so much fun. And I remember I was looking on one of the marriage ministries that we follow on social media, and they had Ted Cunningham on their they do a YouTube show, and they had Ted Cunningham on there, and I just responded. I was like, "Oh my goodness, we love Ted Cunningham. He comes to our church, and he's preached at our church, and we've been to his marriage retreats. And probably my favorite marriage book is one that's called Fun Loving You, and he wrote it about how to have fun in your marriage, there's steps and things that you can do and things that you need to have a good time. And so we want to be able to share that as well, so that it's not just the heaviness and how do you fight through infidelity. Yes, that's important. But my goodness, you need to get to a healthy part of your marriage where you just enjoy life together.
That's right.
Enjoy being together.
I'm excited about this season. We've got a lot of exciting things coming down the pipe.
Yeah, for sure. We've so have we touched on every marriage season and issue that you could possibly?
No, if we didn't, let us know.
Oh, I'm sure someone will,
because it still applies.
Yeah, no, we just want to be a resource. And one of the things that I hope that we have been able to come, you mentioned this earlier as we were talking too, is just those that are listening and they hear of a friend that's walking and journeying through something, and they can point them to a resource. And
not what I just wanted to say, and not only that, but I always, I don't know exactly how to say this, except that, how if you got a text message from somebody that said, "Hey, I thought you might enjoy this marriage ministry podcast," they may be like, "What? Do I look like I have something wrong with my marriage?" Or if you post about it and say, "Check this out," then people are going to be like, "Oh, they must be having trouble in their marriage." And that's not it. You can send this to somebody or comment or post and say what an encouragement that this podcast is. Or, hey, send, even if you think something might be going on, or if they're not, just if it's a friend of yours, and be able to say, "Hey, this is such an encouragement to me. You might want to check out, season 2, any of the seasons," but just to not just say it has to be oh gosh, they must be having trouble, so they need this podcast. It can be for anybody, even people who are loving life and loving their marriage, and just for an encouragement.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the main message that you're always going to hear from us, and that we're always going to try to point marriages to, no matter what season that you're in, is just hope, because you're going to run through tough times, you're going to run through tough seasons. And we want you to know that our God is a God of forgiveness, of restoration, of reconciliation, redemption. You're going to hear those words a lot when you listen to our podcast, because that's the message that we have, the message of hope. And so we're going to keep plugging along through 2022, and we're going to keep sharing our message of hope, and we're going to keep encouraging you to keep fighting for your marriage, no matter where you are on the journey. No matter how good or how bad things seem, we want you to keep fighting for your marriage. That's the whole goal. So what do we have in store for 2022? Do you know what all we're going to talk about this year, or not really?
How many weeks are in a year? 52?
52.
That's a lot. We can't talk about all 52 topics right now.
Let's start. Number 1.
No, we have lots of ideas and lots of ways to encourage you guys. And if you have something you want us to talk about, we did that at the 12 questions of Christmas last year. And that was fun. If you have things you want us to talk about, or questions that you want us to answer, then we would love to do that as well, because we don't have 52 topics. Let's be real.
Well, we do. We just haven't planned them out yet, all 52.
That's right.
But yeah, we really do. We've talked a lot because we've had some downtime over the last couple of weeks, just being with family and being with each other. And we've talked a little bit just about what we want to do and where we want to go with our ministry to marriages in 2022. And so, we're excited about that. You may even see on social media at some point a survey that you can do to just to help us out on some other resources that we're working on. And we just want to ask you to just engage and be involved, because it just helps us and it gives us direction, and hopefully it'll help us as we try to help more people. And I know that we say this all the time, but like the ratings and reviews that you do on your podcast platform, it means a lot, not because it boosts our ego, but because it really does. There's, as you guys know, with all this social media and stuff.
If you say algorithm, I'm going to come across this table.
Okay, I'm not going to say algorithm. There's this algorithm thing that apparently the more ratings and reviews that are out there, the more follows. It really does. It bumps our podcast up on the viewing list. And so when people are searching for marriage podcasts or different things, then it pops up sooner. And so those are things that are important just for us to be able to continue to share with more people. So that's our encouragement to you, to help us out that way. And look, we have said this before, but we love hearing from you, and we genuinely pray for you. If you have messaged us, we do our best to make sure that we respond to you as quickly as we can, but also we put your name in. We actually have a prayer list, and you're on that prayer list. And so we want to continue to pray for you. And so if there's something that comes up and we can pray, it doesn't matter what it is. If you just need somebody to pray for you, and I've said this on multiple episodes, when we were walking through and journeying through our marriage trauma, marriage crisis from 10 years ago, we were just desperate for anything and anybody that we could find that would give us hope, resource, whatever it was. And there just wasn't a lot out there. And there are some great ministries going on out there, but we want to be that for you. 2022 is going to be a great year of marriage, and we want everybody to commit right now to working on your marriage, to being faithful and working hard. And my wife's taking a picture of me right now, so
because you look so cute.
I'm
your
trying
whole
to
year.
Oh goodness, let's not talk about it. All right, we're shutting this thing down right now. Hey, thank you for being a listener, and thank you for joining us on this marriage journey. We are looking so forward to 2022. Can't wait to share it with you. Can't wait to hear about all of your triumphs and joys in your marriage in 2022. Let's make it one of the best ones yet.
See you guys next week.
See you next week. Happy New Year.